Hello, plastic science enthusiast! Welcome to Plastically, the podcast where you'll find the most up to date information on plastic pollution, environmental regulation, and innovative solutions from around the world, told in a simple, engaging, and entertaining way. In today's episode, we are diving into a universal, yet often invisible problem: microplastics. My name is Damarish, and I'll be your host for today's episode titled Macro, what? Microplastics, their origin and fate in our bodies. Well, let's start by defining what microplastics actually are. Microplastics are plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters in diameter. To put that into perspective, imagine a rubber eraser crumbled into tiny bits. These fragments don't just appear out of nowhere. They are the result of larger plastics breaking down. This mainly happens through photodegradation, where UV rays from the sun weaken the plastic's chemical bonds, making it brittle and easier to break into smaller pieces. Mechanical abrasion, like waves rubbing against the rocks or the wear and tear of car tires on the road, also contributes to microplastic formation. There are two main types of microplastics: primary and secondary. Primary microplastics are intentionally manufactured at tiny sizes for its use in products like facial scrubs, cosmetics, and industrial abrasives. Secondary microplastics, on the other hand, result from the breakdown of larger plastic waste. Things like bottles, bags, fishing nets, and other debris polluting our oceans, rivers, and soils. How do these microplastics enter the environment? Well, primary microplastics can enter water system through domestic and industrial wastewater. Secondary microplastics spread through wind, water currents, and human activities. Abandoned fishing nets, also known as ghost nets, are a major source of ocean microplastics. Washing synthetic clothing also releases microfibers, which pass through wastewater treatment plants and end up in the environment. Now, let's talk a bit more about their size and characteristics. While microplastics are generally defined as particles smaller than 5 millimeters, there's an even smaller scale: nanoplastics. These are plastic particles under 100 nanometers in size. That's 1 millionth of a millimeter. To give you an idea, they are so tiny they can only be seen with high resolution electron microscopes. The size difference between nanoplastics, microplastics, and macroplastics, which are larger plastics, is important because it affects how they behave and their environmental and health impact. Microplastics are easier to spot and clean up, but their breakdown fuels the microplastic problem. Microplastics, because of their size, can be ingested by a wide range of organisms, from tiny invertebrates to fish and seabirds. Nanoplastics are even more concerning because they can cross biological barriers like cell membranes and the blood brain barrier, allowing them to reach organs and tissues that microplastics can't. Beyond size, microplastics' shape, color, and chemical composition can also play a role in their toxicity and effect on living organisms. Microplastics come in many shapes: irregular fragments, fibers, films, and spheres. Their color can depend on the original plastic or any added pigments. Chemically, they can be made from a wide range of polymers, like polyethylene, polypropylene, and so others, each with different properties and toxicity levels. Microplastics in the environment are alarming, but even more so is their presence in the human body. Recent studies have found microplastics in lungs, blood, stool, and even placenta. This means we are exposed to these particles through various pathways: inhalation, consumption of contaminated food and water, and even skin contact. The potential health effects of micro and nanoplastics are a growing concern. Though research is still in early stages, some studies suggest they may cause inflammation and cellular damage. Microplastics can also act as carriers for other pollutants. They're like vehicles transporting bacteria, heavy metals, and organic compounds that stick to their surfaces and end up inside our bodies. Nanoplastics are even more worrisome due to their ability to cross biological barriers and accumulate in organs and tissues. Animal studies have shown that nanoplastic exposure can lead to liver damage, neurotoxicity, and immune system disruption. But it's important to note that these studies are in animals, and more research is needed to fully understand the impact on human health. A recent study published in Environmental Science and Technology Letters found microplastics in lung tissue from surgical patients. Another, published in Environmental International, detected microplastics in the blood of most participants, suggesting widespread human exposure. These findings are alarming. Yes, they are, and highlight the urgent need to address plastic pollution. Microplastic pollution is a global issue that demands urgent and coordinated solution. Reducing plastic production and consumption, improving waste management, and developing more efficient filtration technologies are key steps in tackling this challenge. On an individual level, we can reduce our plastic footprint by avoiding single use plastics, choosing reusable alternatives like fabric bags or metal bottles, and recycling properly. Staying informed and spreading awareness about microplastics also helps drive behavioral change. Though research on health effects of micro and nanoplastics is still ongoing, current findings are enough to raise concern. Governments, industries, and the scientific community must work together to better understand these risks and create effective strategies to protect both our health and the environment. Thanks for joining me in this episode of Plastically. I hope you learned something new about microplastics and their global impact. Remember, you don't need to be a top scientist or a genius to be part of the change. And if you have a project, an idea, or a dream, don't forget, if you can dream it, you can build it. See you next time!